Making gardening more accessible is a real passion of mine, especially with my grow, cook, eat ethos. So when I was matched with TV presenter and garden ninja Lee Burkhill through the Garden Media Guild Buddy Scheme, we clicked instantly and I just had to get him onto my podcast. We chat about how he has risen to fame and how his love for garden design has grown, as well as how much work goes into show gardens at design exhibitions. Let's do this. Hello, welcome to the Countryside Kitchen Meets, a food and farming podcast. I'm Milly Fyfe, your host. I'm a mum of two, farmer's wife, food producer, and passionate about flying the flag for British food and farming. Today we'll be chatting to the garden ninja, Lee Burkhill. Then I've got some inspiration when it comes to mealtime preparations and some recipe suggestions to share, meaning that you can juggle family life with the children and cook a tasty, nutritious meal that everyone can enjoy. Okay, let me introduce you to my guest. Lee Burkhill, aka the Garden Ninja, is a multi-award winning garden designer, horticulturalist, garden blogger, vlogger, TV presenter, and YouTuber. Hailing from the northwest of England, Lee has an infectious enthusiasm for helping gardeners all over the world by explaining the why, amazing, behind horticulture and design. The Garden Ninja in his garden design business and online gardening blog to help new gardeners who otherwise would struggle and engage with horticulture. His YouTube channel, Garden Ninja UK, has over 6.5 million views, and his busy gardening blog, gardenninja.co.uk, has won numerous awards. He is a Diabetes UK advocate and a type 1 diabetic. He is also an advocate for LGBTQ plus community. His fans are warmly known as the Ninjas. He's also a beekeeper with 3 hives of honeybees in his apiary. Amazing. Lee and I came together recently as we were paired up as buddies through the Garden Media Guild. And I'm really excited that he's given me some of his time to join on the show today. So without further ado, let's bring Lee onto the show. Hi, Lee. Are you all right?
Well, thanks, Milly. Thanks for welcoming me onto your fantastic podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it's been quite a journey already, and I've already learned so much from you, and that's partly why I wanted to get you on the show, so that obviously you could sort of share some of your knowledge with some of my listeners as well, if that's all right.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic to hear, because the whole sort of methodology of Garden Ninja, Lee Burkhill and the Garden Ninjas, is to spread gardening knowledge, not just how to plant things, how to design, but how to work in the garden media world as well, because it can be a little bit slippery at times. So I'm glad that our coming together as buddies has helped you so far.
Yeah, well, no, it really has. And I'm hoping in some small way that I'm able to give back to you as well, because it should be kind of a reciprocal relationship, really, shouldn't it?
Well, I'm not sure how much my reach sort of spreads out to the agricultural and farming community. So it's nice to be here and to be talking to a different audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, many of my listeners have probably seen you on the TV. And actually, when I said I was so excited when they paired me up with you, and I told a few of my friends, and they were like, "Oh my God, yeah, he's the man with the spiky hair that's on with Charlie
Yeah.
Dimmock." And I'm like, yes. So yeah, no, I think no, and I think I'm really passionate about kind of trying to join up all the dots, because obviously I'm doing a lot of kitchen gardening, grow, cook, eat, and making it more accessible for more people. So I guess, with what I'm doing and then what you're doing, it is making it more accessible to more people, that it isn't just, that you've got all these fancy names for flowers and plants and vegetables. So actually anyone can have a go, can't they?
Exactly. And I think it's about opening up the world of horticulture, farming, agriculture, botany, because if you are a new gardener or someone that's new to agriculture, or you want to start eating locally grown produce, it's like it can be really confusing, because you jump in at the deep end online, and a lot of the time the information is riddled with Latin, or say in your example, farming practices like the nitrogen cycle that people just don't understand. They get totally bamboozled, switch off and go, well, I'm not going to do that because I'll never learn it all and I don't understand it. So my starting point is always, well, let's start from the beginning. If I was a brand new gardener with this subject, whatever it is that I'm helping people with, what would they need to know first off? So I hate the word idiot's guide because it always gives this connotation that people are stupid until they've been educated. But I start with what I call the Billy Basic, beginner's guide, where you can ask whatever question you want. There'll be no sniggering or laughing, and try to take people from absolute no knowledge to feeling competent at the very least with the subject matter. And I think that's really important in gardening, garden media, TV, any kind of outreach work and blogging, because it's too easy for us gardeners or experts to just talk to our fellow gardeners and experts about nuanced things, which for me I like doing that, but I'd rather do that, at the pub with someone in botany than with the world. I would rather go back to basics for everyone else.
Yeah.
Because that's the challenge. Can I teach people in 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe on garden rescue, about these plants or these design principles without them turning over the channel or feeling confused? And that's like the ultimate excitement for me. Can I do that? Can I get this person to stop shaking their head and start nodding with me because they understand?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish more people would do that, because like you, with my cookery, I'm self-taught, I'm a home cook, I'm no cookery expert. And I scroll on Instagram or anywhere, or I watch the cookery programs on TV, and I don't find them very aspirational. I find them very aspirational and not very relatable. And then when you kind of open your cupboard and you think, well, I haven't got that bottle of Madeira sauce. I'm not going to go out and buy a lobster. I'm not going to, I've just got a bag of pasta, some tomatoes, an onion, whatever. And it's kind of like, right then, you don't need to be like, it's very nice to watch some of the TV chefs on telly, and I love it. And I get all fangirly whenever I'm anywhere near any of them, because I'm like, oh, because it is exciting. And that's kind of part of their brand, but actually, I think in terms of making it relatable and authentic and what other people can do at home, it is just making it into bite-sized chunks and cutting out that jargon.
Sometimes people confuse aspiration with perfection, because most of the aspirational images of gardens, in my example, are perfection. They've been curated to look perfect. But for your beginner or intermediate gardener or a residential garden design client, they know that they can't get to that perfection because it is a full-time job. It's a lot of money. But if we can get them to being comfortable and competent in the gardens, well, that should be the aspiration, not amazing £200,000 tiny urban garden full of just the most exotic species pruned to within an inch of their lives, because that's all manicured. Someone's manicuring that, usually an expert. And most people that start off watching, say, Garden Rescue or visiting garden bloggers because they want to learn how to do it or understand it, because if they didn't, they'd just pay a gardener to do it and they wouldn't be bothered. So the aspiration online is perfection, but and if we can get people to realise that's a step, 100 steps down the line if you want it, versus looking at it, being put off and thinking, well, I'll never do that. Because some of that stuff I look at and go, God, I never have the time to do that. So that it puts me off.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, let's take it back to the start. I mean, how did you get growing? Where did your love of horticulture and design come from?
I mean, my love of horticulture was my granddad. He was a very much an allotment gardener when I was a child and a toddler. I spent a lot of time with him when I was growing up, learned all the basics, fruit bushes, potatoes, double digging, creosote in fence panels, all the stuff we probably don't do now, but it was like really grubby, hands-on gardening, working with the seasons, growing things to create either food or something of use. And then it kind of stuck with me. And I remember being at high school and being like a secret gardener at home where, I didn't have the best time at school. I found it quite difficult as a, mohawk wielding oddball to fit in. So gardening is always like the release. It doesn't judge you. You can put in as much or as little effort as you want. And there's no slap on the wrist if it goes wrong. It's a lovely learning experience just for you and quite mindful. At the time, it was just an escape. But so it's always been there in my DNA. But it was always a hobby. It was a luxury that was something nice to do, but I never equated gardening, growing with work or earning a living. Like it was never even on the radar until it kind of happened, 2015, so like 8 years ago now, when I went from that corporate job in project management in IT, suddenly catapulted into design through a few sort of fortuitous events and a lot of study at night school that I did just to really improve my own knowledge of botany and design. I was doing that alongside work just to become a better gardener. And then I won a garden design competition with the BBC and RHS as a new designer. I really didn't expect anything from it. Certainly didn't think I'd win. But as soon as that happened, it was like, oh, off we go. And, you know, I say the rest is history. It's not. There was a lot of hard work, a lot of setbacks. But by the time you're doing your first show garden, having only really started this journey like 3 years before then, there's no way back because you're kind of like, you're there.
You're on the journey. Yeah.
And it was brilliant. And so it just took off and I've just kind of been running with it ever since.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So your first show garden then, where was that?
So that was 2016 at Hampton Court. And yeah, it was a small back-to-back garden, 6 by 4 meters. So, you know, urban size garden.
Yeah.
To do this competition with the RHS, there was different areas that had won different places on this competition. So I was from the Northwest and there was other really interesting gardens, but we were all brand new. And we had this team of like horticultural assistants from the RHS and this amazing woman that helped us pick the plants and brought all of the show garden technical behind the scenes together. Because if you've never done one, you might think, well, I'll turn up with these plants and this and that, but it's so involved. I was totally naive, totally overwhelmed. Most of the time when I was there planting, I felt really out of depth, quite scared at times, thinking, oh God, what if this goes tits up? You have this sort of support system and you have to learn fast, because I think if you don't, there's some of the people that went there, I think, had a nice time but never wanted to do it again because it was too much. For me, it was like, I've got the bug and I want to do more. But yeah, to summarise that, it was a very rapid journey from doing a few night school courses in design to then studying botany up at Edinburgh Botanical Gardens on weekends, to winning this competition, to like the universe just went, right, here you go, you want a career change. Really career change. And then a year after that competition, I'd left work completely and was then self-employed, thinking, oh my God, what am I doing?
Yeah, you've gone from that sort of safety blanket of having like a regular salary and what have you to being like all creative and fancy pants, but thinking, oh yeah, I've still got bills to pay and stuff.
Yeah, and going from like you just said, creative fancy pants at Hampton Court, thinking, oh, I'm doing amazingly well. So then back in Manchester, taking on, you know, garden design jobs for 100 quid a pop, because it's basically just trying to get some money in. And I was still an unknown and I didn't know what to set my rates at. So I was literally just doing them to boost my portfolio.
Yeah.
Probably just giving away my skills for free. But when I saw those clients and them getting involved in their own gardens and learning, that's when the YouTube channel started, because I ended up with a load of small residential clients or friends who I'd designed the gardens for on a budget, you know. And then they were like, well, how do I do this with that plant? Or when do I scarify my lawn? When do I do this? And I kept repeating myself and I was getting a bit tired of it. So I thought, well, I'll just knock up a quick video on how to repot those containers that you have to do every couple of years. And then I'll do it how to lay lawn, so you understand if you need to reseed it. And then that took off as like the YouTube channel. So that became another sort of string to the bow. It was design and the YouTube channel explaining it all. And the whole thing has just got carried away beyond control. And I love it for that. But it never set out to be this master plan, to be a TV presenter, garden designer. I've just followed the passion. And look at me, touch wood. So far, so good. And people seem to engage with it. And I'm still having the right good time with it.
Oh, mate, well, that's the main thing, you know. If you don't enjoy it, then why would you do it, you know? And you're on, no, absolutely. And so what would be your favorite things to grow? I mean, obviously, when I always say what things to grow, I'm always thinking of vegetables and what have you. But really, you're probably more on flowers and hedging and trees and things like that. What really floats your boat?
I mean, I love to grow them, but the things that I love to persuade people to grow are, you know, suitable small garden trees in urban spaces, because we've got this complete panic that trees are going to take over your garden, uproot your fence, annoy your neighbours. And it's all rubbish. It's all about the right trees. And the more suitable, small and urban garden trees we can introduce, the better. Wildlife, privacy, temperature control, just greenery in general, and to calm down our urban gardens so that they're not sterile boxes. So, I love small garden trees, especially fruit trees. I love to graft fruit trees, which is a little bit more involved. Wildflowers as well, which I love. Things that are native to the UK that are pretty much bulletproof, that people can grow and succeed with. And last year I've been experimenting with things like meadowsweet and milkweed, kind of unused wild flowers that once you've got a few of them, you can divide them and they're pretty much bulletproof. So for me, it's stuff that's going to get gardeners gardening and involved, and it doesn't involve trays of petunias or bedding plants, which they have their place, but it's like sustainable long-term gardening where people plant a plant and it's there for the foreseeable future until they move house. It's encouraging people to grow those sorts of things rather than
stuff that's suitable for our climate as well, isn't it? It's stuff that isn't going to die in a frost, or it might, die back for the winter, but then it pops back up and it's like, oh, hello, I'm here again. And you think, oh, I'm not going to kill everything that I plant. I'm terrible with houseplants. I can't keep them alive, but then I keep everything outside alive, and I keep the children alive. So I'm kind of like, I'm not really going to worry and sweat over the houseplant side of things.
And that's it. It's like, this is a perfect point that you've raised. You will never be an expert in all things horticulture, botany, gardening, farming, design. So you have to pick the bits that really float your boat that you're going to specialise in. I get a lot of new or very beginner garden designers that have just done a course or whatnot. They email me or they get in touch on social media saying, I feel overwhelmed. I've done the course, I've got the certificate, where do I start? And I say, start anywhere, start small, start with what you know, and then it will expand and it'll change. But don't try and start being the formal garden designer, informal, Mediterranean, Japanese, arborist, plant specialist. You've just got to go with what you know. So for you, if you can't keep houseplants, well, who cares? Because you can do all this other stuff. And we shouldn't be forced into being, the perfection, being perfect in everything, like the aspirational perfection. Should we just do what works for you and what you enjoy? And if you get some failures, fine. But Mother Nature doesn't care. She's not going to judge you, so don't judge yourself either.
No, and just have a go, like you say. That's your ethos, isn't it? And and mine too. We see you on our screen on BBC Garden Rescue alongside Charlie Dimmock and crew. How did your public profile take off? Because obviously you sort of talked about your YouTube channel and winning the garden design competition. How did that come about? And also, you obviously coined the name Garden Ninja. Are you into kind of martial arts, or how did that all come about?
Yeah, but I'll start with the Garden Ninja because that's probably the easiest bit. But no, I'm not into martial arts. But when I qualified in garden design, I'd done all my horticultural exams and whatnot, passed them and really enjoyed them. And then it was like, right, I'm going to start this business. What am I going to call it? And then everyone else, names the garden design businesses after themselves. And I get that, no judgment. But for me, I thought, well, I don't just want to be Lee Burkhill garden designer. Like, I want to be really accessible and I want it to be a community. So Garden Ninja started because one of the very first clients I had said, oh, you've come in and just changed the garden, like this little garden ninja. You've been for a few days and now look at it. And it just stuck. So the Garden Ninja was born, and then that's why we've got the ninjas, who are the followers, because they are all working towards or have become garden ninjas in their own right. Because if I share the knowledge, I don't lose it, they gain it, the community just gets bigger. So it's not just Lee Burkhill and his followers, we are the Garden Ninjas. So that's where that came from. And then the Garden Rescue thing came totally out of the blue. They'd watched me on YouTube, got in touch. I thought it was a total joke, as in going to be a good, like, at least 10 people being interviewed. And whilst I took it seriously, I was also conscious of not getting caught up in the hype of wanting it that much that it was going to, keep me awake at night. So it was serious, but it was also like, we'll just see where it goes. And then, lo and behold, 2 months later, I was commissioned for so many shows, and it just all sort of, again, just took off from there. And even now, I love it. I love presenting, but it's just like this fun job I have as part of the Garden Ninja world. And yeah, there's a really steadfast and enthusiastic crowd that watch Garden Rescue. I think the competitive nature of it really gets people excited, and it's really lovely to meet what I call the rescuers, the Garden Rescue fans, who see all over the place at the most random times as well. You know, sat in your dinner, someone will come over and ask about a plant or whatnot. But it's never part of the plan. But I am really enjoying it, and I'm just seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
And doing my best to keep the Garden Ninja helpful attitude in the show, even when I think maybe sometimes, you know, the show would want to edit out some of the how-to or the why. I'm really determined to get that why. You know, why am I doing it? Because if I'm just doing it to make it look nice, well, then that, you know, anyone in theory could make something look nice. But there's a science, there's an art to designing plants, and I want to make sure that whenever I'm using or touching a plant, I'm going to be telling you why. Why is it there? Why should you use it? Why shouldn't you use it? You know?
Yeah. And also when, you know, if you were to then come back a year or 2 years, however long, that whoever you've done the design for is able to then manage that long term. Because like you said earlier, like if you've done something really fancy pants or something very exotic, or, you know, it's just going to look a bit naff after a while, isn't it? If everything just dies or blows over, or, you know, it just isn't going to look great.
Yeah, and that's a really hard balance, because it's easy to kind of get the client brief, which we get early in the year, and then you start to draw up the concepts and we get them costed. And there's a whole heap of people, project managers, horticultural experts that source the plants for us, and they're all involved in basically costing it. And is it feasible? Can we do it in 2 days? So that's one part of it. But then it's really easy to go down this fancy route where you kind of put in what I call little wows, things that are going to look great on TV that people are going to love. But you've also got to be careful. But I always try and be careful that they are functional, because I don't just want to imagine if in 2 years' time it's going to look bobbins, or they're not going to maintain it, or they're going to feel overwhelmed by it. So, and that's the tricky balance is, does it look good for TV? Is it functional for them? Does it have longevity? And for me, it's always got to meet those 3 boxes.
Yeah, definitely. One thing we did in the garden over the summer, I'm really keen to, so my children are 4 and 6 now, they're getting very involved in gardening. They had an old sandpit, plastic one, that obviously we didn't really have much use for. So we dug a massive hole, and we've established like a really small pond, as a little wildlife pond. And I wanted to do it because obviously I wanted to bring more wildlife in, but also to get them interested in, you know, what animals might come and drink out of it, and what could we grow around it and stuff. So obviously eventually we'll have perhaps a bigger pond or a bigger water feature, but it's of the size where they're not going to try and get in it, but they're also not going to drown either. So it's kind of practical. So although it's not deep enough to
does it work? Are you going to be able to look after it? And then if so, you can scale it up and you end up with a bigger pond or a deeper pond. And that's the same with most garden principles. If the proof of concept works, you know, if one raised bed works, you maintain it, you enjoy it, you get good food or flowers from it, then move to 2 or 3. But don't start with 10, because you'll get totally overwhelmed. So it's about this, like, start slow and steady and work your way up.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant advice, because we tried to put some goldfish in it, but it's not deep enough, and so obviously we kept having to top the water up, and then I think we had a really hot day, and sorry, the goldfish didn't make it, I'm afraid. But they were gifted. But we've learned from that, you know. We're not going to try and put more goldfish in it until it's a bigger, deeper pond where they can go and like go into the cold bits when it's a hot day. So
50 centimeters or more deep, thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't very deep, but we've got some lovely lily pads in there and some other bits. So so it's really nice. So we've already kind of covered this a little bit, but I think it's important to kind of hammer it home as well. Do you have to be a gardening geek and know all of these kind of plant names to really get into gardening?
No, is a quick answer. What I would say is, as you become a better gardener, as in you try all things, some work, some don't, you will naturally be led to learning more about the plant name, taxonomy, because it gives you clues as to how the plant looks, the conditions that they want, and also the association with other plants. So definitely not. You do not need to know Latin to be a great gardener. But I would put money on the fact that as you become better, you will start to dabble in the Latin, just because it helps those associations and it will help you see plants in a slightly different light. So it very much has its purpose. For the most part, it's for botanists, experts, garden designers that really do need to know the Latin. But for the rest of those beginners or enthusiastic amateur gardeners, no, you don't. But if you ever get confused with a plant, or you think that looks a bit like that other plant, if you look at the Latin of the two, if that's the case, you'll see the crossover, because they'll either have the same family or the same genus, or the species name will give an indication. If they've got, like the silvery leaves, they might have a Latin term that relates to silver, or furry or hairy leaves. So it's kind of like, as you get more sucked into the rabbit hole of horticulture, you will by very nature start to look at those names.
Yeah, and you're so right, because I can't get it. But then I'm like, oh, I know what a digital artist is now. I don't even know if I said that right, but I know it's a foxglove. Yeah. And then when you watch the telly, you're like, oh, and then like University Challenge has a question, and I'm like, I know the answer now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like digitalis, like purpurea, which is a standard for purpurea, means purple. Alba, digitalis alba, means white. So therefore, if you know there's two names, one of them is going to be purple, one's going to be white, but they're both foxgloves. So, and that's what starts the little seed of, well, I want to know a bit more about that. And you can look on a plant label and suddenly know, with a bit of knowledge, what those terms mean and how the plants all relate to each other.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Obviously, we talked a lot about flowers and trees. Do you enjoy kitchen gardening, and are there anything you like to grow, cook, and eat, for example?
Yeah, I do. I'll be really honest with you, Milly. My schedule means that my kitchen garden or kitchen garden efforts are always really sort of last minute because of work. But I grow an awful lot of fruit. I've got an orchard here at Garden Ninja HQ that I've grafted most of the trees from. I have some really old fruit trees like medlars, quince, and I've got loads of different varieties of gooseberries. Basically, like the really bulletproof, thorny fruit trees that give like some really beautiful fruits. So I grew a lot of them. This year, I did a show garden where I grew all of the grow your own for one of the beds, which was a huge undertaking, and has put me off growing anything next year from seed.
Oh no!
Thousands of squash, all in a massive a massive fruit cage to protect them from creepy crawlies and birds and stuff. But yeah, for me, it's more fruit. Yeah. Probably when I retire, when I'm like 120, I might start growing some stuff in raised beds. But I put a lot of effort into the garden design side of things to help people with kitchen gardens, and I have in the past grown an awful lot. But with my schedule, I just know it causes me stress, and gardening should be useful. So fruit and trees, pretty much my limit at the moment. I never want to see another squash again.
So I just let them grow like massive triffids just everywhere. They just take over. We've got an old muck heap at the bottom of the garden, and I put a few pumpkins and squashes, and the kids go bonkers for them because they're like, oh. But with the fruit, then do you make any jam or crumbles or anything, or do you just pick them off and eat them? Apples and things.
Bit of both, but I am secretly like an old WI woman in ninja disguise, because I love making jam. I love making crumbles. The freezer's full of them. My husband's like, we need to start eating more crumble because we've got them there from like 3 years ago. I make jellies with the medlar cheese. I infuse gin and vodka with different fruits. Yeah, like, I am that wartime woman that needs to pick stuff because I just don't eat it when it's fresh.
You must be you're a feeder then. You like making it, but you just hoard it.
People at Christmas get those awkward jars of jam that I've made for them that they're probably never going to eat. It's like, here, have my spicy medlar jelly as my Christmas gift.
Oh, but that's nice, because there's a lot of it's personal, isn't it? I mean, I mean, you might think that, but then people might go, oh, when they're spreading it on their jam on their toast in the morning.
It's like if I ever give you a swig of my hip flask, up a mountain somewhere, or skiing, or when it's cold, it's never going to be brandy or whiskey. It will be like damson gin or some form of like percolated spirit.
You're talking my language now. I've shared on the blog. I've got elderflower cordial, and then I do like raspberry gin, blackberry brandy is amazing. Oh yeah, no, that's really nice. Yeah, but it's so simple though, isn't it? But you just feel like you are like that WI woman that's kind of like, yeah, we're making it more trendy though, aren't we?
Modern day.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So what's next for you then? Because obviously you're on our TV screens at the moment with BBC Garden Rescue. You're obviously doing design work, you know. Have you got Chelsea in the lineup for the year? You know, what 2024 look like for you?
I mean, I think I'm on my sixth, must be my sixth show garden now in probably not as many years. I've kind of been given a bit of a veto by my husband, no more show gardens for now because they just take up so much. I've loved them. I love the process. I love working with the teams and educating the public on why that show garden fits together as it does and what's in there to grow as well. But it's a lot of time. So next year, no show gardens after this year's mammoth show garden, which I think was like the biggest that's happened. It was all right, Goliath. But next year, I really want to expand on the garden ninja knowledge. I've got my YouTube channel, I do a lot of public speaking, but how can I help other beginner gardeners? Is it a book? Is it some form of course? Is it a training course? I don't know, but that's where I'm fizzing with ideas at the moment for next year. So carry on doing what I normally do, keep enjoying it, keep churning out interesting and unusual garden rescue designs and challenging the status quo. I think that's enough, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't want to become so lofty that I overwhelm myself with grandeur. If I'm still smiling, then I'm happy. But if it becomes a stress, I probably need to drop that bit off because it was stressful in my old job and it shouldn't be stressful in this one because I've picked it. It's my own.
Yeah, you found your calling. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's really cool. And you're fairly young in your career as well. You've got a lot to give, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I hope so. You never know. Maybe I'll get totally burnt out by TV and be like in rehab somewhere drinking Earl Grey tea.
I thought you were going to say you're Dams and Gin or something.
Oh,
well, I suppose if you're in rehab. Now, listen, how can people find out more about you? What are your links? What are your accounts and profiles? Where can people find you?
I mean, go to the mother Google, search Garden Ninja Lee Burkhill. My garden blog is gardenninja.co.uk. I'm on YouTube as Garden Ninja. Search for Guy with Mohawk Garden Rescue, and I guarantee I'll pop up somewhere, whether you like it or not. But yeah, whether you want to read about gardening, garden design, watch me, show you, or listen to me, find my channels and all the content's there, free at the point of delivery. You can just consume it as you wish.
Yeah.
And give me feedback because the community is there to help. So
yeah,
really lively forum on the site as well. So if you've got a random question that you can't find an answer to, ask us. And if we know, we will help you.
Yeah. Amazing. No, that's brilliant. And I love the fact that you have got that community. It's not, you are involving people at every level and it just makes you even more accessible, if you know what I mean. I mean, there's only enough of, there's only one of you to give, but actually if you're sharing that knowledge, it's amazing what you're doing. So, I'll share the links in the show notes as well so that everyone can find them. But right. Okay. Here are a few things that you can try at home. Before I dive in with my suggestions this time, I just wanted to set the scene. I'm hoping that you tune into this podcast to not only listen to my super interesting guests, but also to pick up on some top tips and mealtime inspiration. As busy people, we all seem to have less and less time to prepare, cook, and eat a meal. And studies have revealed that over 50% of us in the UK dedicate less than 30 minutes each day to food prep, cook, and eat. And that includes clearing up as well time. I've had a lot of health complications after having my children, and I am a huge advocate of wellness, looking at eating more whole foods and improving my gut health, as well as trying to move away from ultra-processed food. I'm not superhuman, and I would dive for a frozen pizza after a crazy busy working day, running errands, ferrying the kids about, but I'm trying to change a few habits, improve my mindset with some simple swaps, and do things a little bit different. So think about it. Rather than buying a jar of sauce, say a tomato pasta sauce that comes from, one of those famous Italian cookery adverts that you see all the time on the TV, which is quite processed. why not fry off an onion, add in a can of tomatoes, a pinch of herbs and a chopped pepper, which will cost half the price of said jar of sauce, and it's got whole food in it. You can chop things super fine, so if you're worried about the kids being picky, you can hide veg in it. Convenience very rarely equals healthy eating, and a few simple swaps, such as a can of tomatoes or even homegrown, rather than a ready-made jar of sauce, will really help to boost your overall wellness. Now, in season, this is going out in the springtime, so I'm hoping we will have some things in our greenhouse by the time that you are listening to this. As many of my listeners will know, I really get going around March, April time with some veggies. So I'll probably have tomatoes, carrots, cabbage, spinach, purple sprouting. But just be careful, because at this time of year there is still quite sharp frost. So we'll obviously have to cover up with fleece until probably early May time, when it starts to warm up. Something that anyone can have a go at growing is new potatoes, which you can dedicate a small area in your garden to plant the seed potatoes into. And you can pick up some small seed potato bags. I actually get mine from the pound shop, and I place them in the bottom with some compost. As the potatoes start to chit and grow, continue to cover with a little more compost to encourage the growth all the way up the bag. And before long, you'll have a giant jungle growing, and you'll be able to harvest in late June. Also, Jersey Royals will be in season in around April, and also asparagus will be in season too, which is super delicious, and will add to any of your dinner time recipes. But check out my blog, No Fuss Meals for Busy Parents, for lots of mealtime inspiration. As many of you know, I've recently updated my website, and there are so many recipes on there. And also, if you go onto the seasonal ingredients, there's January to December, and there's lots of recipe ideas for each month, pairing with the item that is in season at the moment. So is there anything that you will be growing, Lee? I know you said that your schedule is going to be hugely busy, but is there anything you're obviously not going to grow squash? I know that.
I tell you what I would recommend, especially for beginner gardeners, which are chives. Now, you can grow them from seed. I use chives as ornamental plants in my garden, so I weave them through certain borders. They will multiply all on their own accord. You can cut them and eat the foliage for that oniony taste. You can eat the flowers. You can fry the flowers off. Absolutely beautiful. Flush-free plants. Buy a packet of seeds for £1, £2 max. Sow them on a window ledge, get them out into the garden, and they come back year after year. So for me, it's all about chives.
Definitely. And the bees absolutely love them, don't they? They're brilliant.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I totally agree, because chives is something you can like chop up over potatoes or put in a salad. Oh, yeah, no, I'm with you on that one, totally. Excellent. All right. That is all we've got time for today. Don't forget to tune into the next episode of the Countryside Kitchen Meets on the 1st of each month. You can subscribe on all major podcast streaming platforms. Now, would you do me a favour? Would you tell people about this podcast, or give me a podcast review? Hopefully 5 stars. Thank you. Just being cheeky there. It would really help with making more people aware of the show. And have you spotted that the website has been upgraded, and I also have a hero video. So if you want to know why I've started this and what it's all about, then check it out. And I'll put the link to that in my show notes as well. Now, before I go, I just wanted to say thank you, Lee, so much for joining me. It has been amazing having you on. I'm really pleased.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for having me, and hopefully with all of your listeners into agriculture, we can get some ornamental plants mixed in amongst all the edibles, and people can just start to share the knowledge more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and perhaps we'll have to get you onto the farm sometime. You'll have to come down here, or have to get you here over lambing time or something. Come and give us a hand, because we always need some extra support.
Or digging you a pond.
You're on. Brilliant. Right. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.